So I am sitting in my car. I am the nerd in the car. And this time, instead of driving, I am actually halted, and maybe a safer way to go about making a recording. Just that I was trying to multitask in my other videos. But in some situations, I think that's not very appropriate. Uh, Moreover, this time I am actually recording on my tablet. So today's topic is on focus. Focus is a word which gets bandied around quite a lot by in many of these startup events. You will see mentors coming up on stage and they will talk about focus. You have to be focused on whatever you're doing. The strange thing is, actually, when you really look at it, and pardon me for telling like this, I don't want to hurt anybody, but when angel investors request startups to get focused, they themselves are actually pretty defocused, because they will not take their entire funds which they have and then go and focusedly give to one company. In fact, they will spread the risk. They will take parts of their funds which is available to them, and then give each part to a very different company. In fact, more different the company it is, the better the portfolio is, so that in case a few of them do not work out, the rest of them actually would emerge and then will be giving them the profits. And the same people many times will tell that startup that you better be focused. I'm sure there are some good reasons for all that, and actually I don't particularly rebel against this word focus. Okay, so I'm not saying that you should not be focused, but since we are on the quest of finding out the nuances of what are all these startup advices which are floating around, and so let's get to know what do you mean by focus. So, there are two things which people need to know. One is the empirical reality which they are into. What do you mean by empirical reality? It means the reality which we face daily through our senses. I see something, I do something with our hands, I can hear something, I can taste something, I can touch something. And if you broadly look at what people generally would easily understand, is when you frame things based on your empirical reality. So you tell somebody, I did this, I did that, I worked on that, and I saw this here, and I heard that, and all that. This is all pretty easy to understand because you can relate to it very well. You are also surrounded by your own empirical reality. But there is another abstract reality which is there, a set of abstractions where the startup founder would say, okay, let me take a step out from this reality and start thinking about the higher objectives, what it may lead to, what would be the context which may get improved, what is that real value which my startup is going to deposit into the world. And these are all little rarefied, these are all abstract things. You will say things like the environment will be improved, but what about that environment? I mean, which part of the environment will get improved? These are all very kind of vague topics, and many times when you express things like that, people will get a little confused. They really don't know what you're talking about. Now, coming back to the word focus. So when you talk about focus, you could be focused on your empirical reality. So you will say that, I'll come into the office, I'll get my team to do this, and they have to act on that, and they have to read that email, and then they have to do this, and they have to do that. That's one set of focus which people get to do. They think that that's where the focus is. And I have a difference of opinion there. The focus is not based on your empirical reality. The focus is on much higher value, abstract reality of what could be the future of this particular work which you're doing? Where will it lead to? What is the kind of real value you're bringing into the world? I mean, there are a million questions at that level. And to understand this, let me give you one example from the field of inventions. So there was this man, one Swiss man, if I'm not mistaken. He was walking with his dog, and he went into some wilderness, and he was wearing this corduroy pants. When he came back, he found that there were this little burrs which was sticking to his pants, and it was sticking to the hair of his dog also. So he carefully extracted all that. Now look at this concept of focus. Now he could be focused on that empirical reality of handling those, extracting those seeds which got stuck on his pants and the hair of the dog. But he started getting focused on a much higher level, at a higher set of abstractions. So imagine if somebody walked into his living room and he asked that guy, like, what are you doing? He'll say, oh, I just came back from a walk, and you see all this stuff got stuck on my corduroy pants and my dog. I mean, this is a mythical conversation, and the other person would perfectly understand what he was talking about, because it's all very immediate and very verifiably seen over there. But suppose that guy said that, you know what, and which he did actually. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he ended up working on that for almost 8 years, and that resulted in something called the Velcro. Now imagine somebody sitting over there, and he says that, you know what, I'm not really talking about these particular seeds and their burrs and how it got entangled in the hair of my dog and my corduroy pants, but I'm actually talking about, why does this happen, and what could be the lessons here, and then how do I end up creating using this particular force. It's pretty badly entangled, so probably he used a microscope and then started dissecting how that seed got entangled. So he discovered that on one side there were hooks, on the other side there were hoops, and they got stuck into each other. Now imagine this, suppose he actually asked somebody else to come where he's sitting and say that, okay, take a look at this, see this hoop here and see this hook there, and see how it gets entangled. Let's use that for making fasteners. The other guy will say he's bonkers, because many people do not understand the strength of numbers. They say, why tiny hook and one tiny this thing, how can it fasten? They say, no, lots of it is there. But then people, these are not really their reality. Okay, coming back to the topic of focus in an IT startup. So in an IT startup, when you talk about what you should be focused on, your focus is really not on the things which you do at that immediate level. You don't say that, we have a very good system in our office, we will get this team to do that and that team to do this, and we are therefore extremely focused. That kind of focus may end up with a lot of rigidity. My understanding of focus is to do with that higher level understanding of the abstractions. What will this lead to? What is that end context which I am focused on? What will be that situation which we will be leading to? That is the focus. Long time back, I was very impressed by this thing called a wiki. Now this is way back somewhere in, I think, 97 or something around that time, 1997. This was before Wikipedia. Now I had been working on a scripting language for the net, which is based on Prolog, and that's a story to be told separately on that. And I started fooling around with the code, and I realized that I can also write a wiki. And I wrote one, and it was actually used pretty effectively. There was this website called VIPTNT, which was for Visual Prolog to talk about the language visual prologue, and it was quite popular. Evidently, I did not know I was in New Bombay, but all over the world people started following that particular wiki. Now, those days, I was telling people that, you know what, the wiki is a very powerful mechanism for people to collect that data together and then refine that. And there was this very nice discussion. I don't think those terminologies are getting used nowadays, but it was a very nice way to understand what wikis were with respect to what is known as threaded discussion boards were. So so one was called document mode discussions and the other one was called threaded discussions. So if you look at a discussion board, it is something like email. So one guy puts up one post, the other guy replies to that, and the earlier guy replies, and so on and so forth. So it gets threaded together into a conversation. The problem there was that people finally end up, what in Hindi we call it as tu me, like you and me, like I said this, you said this, and many times that thread finally dissolves into I believe like this and you believe like this, and the whole thing kind of dissipates. Whereas a document mode discussion was about the document, not about the personalities. So I found this to be pretty nice and democratic, and it gives people enough chance to express their opinion even if they are not particularly well known. So I was telling people, you know what, we should actually have a free wiki system, and why don't we join this, join whatever I've done, and let's get this thing going. Nobody did, actually. That was pretty unfortunate. And I had this server which hosted these free wikis, and fair amount of people started using it. They did not know that in the back end there was a AI scripting engine which was doing all that. So coming back to this topic of focus, where was my focus? Was my focus on that system? Was my focus on getting people to get together, to work together? People was wondering, this is crazy. Like, I mean, I'll write something and you mean to say the other guy comes and rewrites everything? What if he just deletes everything and just writes some rubbish? And this was actually a kind of a very known fear, and I said that's probably not going to happen, because the chances of people damaging something would be based on the number of bad people who will come. If there are lots of bad people coming in, yeah, then maybe it would get damaged. Or it could also be in a situation where there are only few people who have joined the system, and then there could be some personality clashes. You get 5 guys, if one of them is pretty nasty or mischievous or whatever, and the other 4 guys write something, this guy goes and deletes everything, and it's a pain if that happens. I can understand that. So I'm telling you the details of what is a free wiki system. So a lot of people do not understand this. They don't understand, like, why would people not delete it? I mean, there's no cogent answer according to them on why it would not get deleted or why it won't get corrupted. For a long period, once Wikipedia came into the situation, a lot of people were foo-fooing it. They say, what, like, this is not really proper encyclopedia. You have to have real good experts on it. In fact, even today there are a lot of people who believe that Wikipedia gives very bad quality information, which is right now, according to me, quite a myth, because the amount of material and the number of people who work together are so large that the chance of something coming up in a fake manner, you can try it out. Actually, you can just go and delete a topic, for example. You'll find that in the next 3 seconds probably you'll find the thing restored, and a warning will be given to you saying that don't go doing stuff like this. This is hard to visualize. This is really hard to visualize, and that was the reason why many times during those days, though I had this free wiki system, it never really took off. Finally, I had to unplug my server. I could not afford the cost of it. It was there for about a year or 2, and I was actually paying through my nose for that server over there. What my point is that when a startup is focused on some higher set of values, that inventor was not focused on that immediate situation, on why that particular seed was getting stuck inside that dog's hair. but he had a much higher, much more abstract purpose on trying to understand and make use of what that particular problem which he noticed, and how he could convert that into a solution. And it didn't happen immediately. He worked on it for 8 years before it really worked. So where is the focus? What is that focus which you talk about? If you talk about focus as something which you have to do for your immediate requirements, and then get that going, you'll end up as a very boring company, actually, to be very honest. And maybe a very rigid one also, because you will be ritualizing the way your company works. But if you were to be focused on that higher objective of saying that, okay, in case of the wiki, I want to have really high quality documents emerging there. And emergence is a very important word there. You look it up, it's a scientific term which actually many people misunderstand. Maybe I should talk separately on the concept of emergence. And so focus is something which you should not be talking about the objective empirical reality around you, but your focus should be on a higher level objective. That is a lot more valuable. It would confuse fair amount of people, but the people who would really understand it, they will stick to your company, know where that company is headed for sure, for that higher values, and then make that successful. So that's my take on the word focus. It's not really the same way as what a lot of mentors talk about focus. I hope it's useful for you, and I hope you make a really great startup and do something phenomenal. And I'll see you in my other videos. This is the nerd in a car. Thank you so much.